Good evening, and thank you for joining the breakdown with me, Toni Waterman. Here are the big topics we'll explore tonight. It's one of the original pillars of the Bermuda economy, tourism and the hospitality industry that supports it. With new hotels on the horizon, are there enough Bermudians to fill the jobs? And how will the initiatives outlined in the throne speech impact the industry? Plus, a scrum down with one of the men behind the Ariel Reed Bermuda International Rugby Sevens tournament. The games attract hundreds to the island, and word is there's room to grow. Well, tonight we are focusing on the hospitality industry, hotels, restaurants, cafes, and increasingly the gig economy. Private citizens moonlighting as hoteliers, renting out part of their own living space. Now, the tourism industry in Bermuda has gone through multiple iterations, and it could be set for another transformation. Some of the initiatives outlined in last Friday's throne speech could have wide implications for the industry. Now, we're going to get to that in just a minute here, but first, a day in the life of a Bermudian making a career in the restaurant industry.
So you guys have some really exciting future plans.
It's crunch time for Deborah Whited.
13 weeks exactly. So we're very excited to welcome our little boy.
She and her partner are expecting their first child. The name Bentley is in the running.
Well, it's his eyes that are like looking at you.
There's a lot to prepare. The kitchen and bathroom are being renovated. The baby's room needs setting up too, all while Deb pursues a career full-time.
That food should be ready in about 5 minutes, yeah? The big table, yeah.
She's worked at Flanagan's Irish Pub for nearly a decade, after a summer job turned into a full-time gig.
I was supposed to be a teacher. And then, I don't know, it just, a summer job that was paying for school ended up just turning into more, and then I stayed.
Ready to order?
Deb has steadily climbed the ranks, from hostess to waitress to now functions manager, after the company paid for a management course at Bermuda College.
So what are you setting up for today?
We have a sip and paint today.
Deb says it's a misconception that working in a restaurant is all backbreaking work with little reward.
The wage that's on paper, the minimum wage that's $6 an hour, for most waitresses, it's not that pretty to look at a paycheck. It kind of just takes care of all of your deductions and your insurances and everything. But it's the extra tips that you get to keep 100% of and the gratuities that you get to make.
Managing Director Chris Garland says the money can really add up.
Some of my staff are making between $1,500 to $2,000 a week in the summer. And in the off season, between $800 and $1,200 a week. Those are really, really good incomes.
Did we save some room for desserts?
Yet despite this, Chris says it's a struggle to attract and retain good talent. The lure of a traditional 9-to-5 job pulls many away. But for those who stick with it, addressing the unique challenges of the restaurant industry is key.
With Deb, trying to gear up for 3.5 to 4 months without any gratuities is it's very challenging. And so with Deb, we decided to take the whole 4 months, decide how much it was going to cost her while she was out, and come up with a plan that would at least get her a paycheck every week. So, it's important for her to feel like she has a company behind her.
Sliders can go one pen.
For Deb, she says Flanagan's is more family than company.
Everyone's looking forward to this baby being a Flanagan's baby. It's that family that you want to work for.
And as her family gets set to grow, she also sees opportunity for growth in her career.
I mean, I would love to be able to call myself an owner of Flanagan's one day, to have worked all this way. So it almost just feels natural to just keep progressing with them.
What are we having? Thai. Sure.
Well, Deb, clearly very passionate about what she does there. But are there enough Debs to go around as the industry continues to grow? We have these hotels on the horizon. Also, what's in store for the industry after the initiatives outlined in that throne speech? Well, we have two great guests joining us tonight to help answer those questions. Stephen Todd, the CEO of the Bermuda Hotel Association, and also Cordell Riley, Institutional Research and Planning Coordinator at Bermuda College. So, Stephen, I actually want to start off with you, because in your capacity as the CEO of the Hotel Association, one of the things that really stood out for me in the throne speech was the talk of this living wage. It seems like it's going to push ahead full steam. And in the Parliamentary Joint Select Committee report earlier this summer, there was a line that said, There is a race to the bottom when it comes to the hospitality industry, with most wages for those earning gratuities such as wait and related staff falling between $5 to $6. And it's advising that come May of next year, they want to see this living wage at $12.25. I mean, we just saw Deb there. She says she makes good money, but also says $6 an hour. I mean, what are the pros and cons of a living wage for the hotel industry?
It's a very relevant topic to be discussing, Toni. What we see in our industry is, and generally on the part of our membership, we're very supportive of the need for a living wage and what it means to obviously Mr. and Mrs. Bermuda in terms of being able to take home a practical and a reasonable wage, but also being in a position to meet their obligations and live a fairly good quality of life.
But what do you think the tangible outcomes could be if you have to start raising wages, perhaps double what they are now?
Well, I think what we would have to, you'd have to be guided by, in our case, the majority of our members are compliant with and work directly with our social partner, which is the Bermuda Industrial Union, through a collective bargaining agreement. That collective bargaining agreement specifies specific minimum hourly wages that have been agreed between the hotel employers of Bermuda and the respective, and in the case of the BIU representing the hotel industry and the workers within that industry. So to use the reference of $6 as being the average wage or average hourly wage is not necessarily correct and doesn't quite reflect the true picture in terms of what the earning capacity would be for a given employee in a gratuity-based position. So we are very supportive of the living wage, but we do believe that we've got statistical data that we're looking to share with our industry partners and with the government to ensure that it represents the true aspect of where we stand as an industry, as opposed to perhaps broadly painting everyone with the same brush and using that as the benchmark minimum hourly wage as the concern specific to raising that minimum hourly wage.
So Cordell, you and I both have a copy here of the employment briefs. We both brought it today. And you can see that in 2017, the median gross annual income in the hotel industry was just shy of $38,000. In the restaurant, cafe, and bars, it was just over $38,000. Is that just looking at that $6 an hour, or does that include to some extent the gratuities, which I assume if they come in a credit card is something that you can track?
Right. I think the way how it's you get paid in the industry, sometimes it will be included in your pay pack. So that will cover this wage here will cover those gratuities. If you looked at what Deb was earning at $6 an hour at the 40-hour week, that only comes to $240. Even at gratuities, taking it up to $300 an hour, $300 a week. At the end of the year, it's just $15,600 or thereabouts. So the minimum wage in Bermuda going at to $12.25. The median income in 2017 was about $64,000. So those in the hospitality industry are earning just above that. So obviously they're not earning, as you're pointing out, that $6 an hour if they're earning above the minimum wage, but it's still below the median income. And so that's where I think the challenge is.
What do you think the spillover effect would be if hotels, restaurants, bars, cafes had to increase the minimum wage to $12, $12.25?
Well, I mean, there's talk about laying off people, some businesses closing. But if you look at where it's been increased in the United States, we haven't seen that. And even where there have been closures, you can't actually pinpoint them directly to an increase in the minimum wage. It is a big jump from Bermuda for going from, say, $6 or $10 or whatever it is now to $12.25. I submitted some work for the Affordable Wage Committee, and and others did as well, and we all came around within $1 or so of $18 an hour. That was in 2016. So I think what the government's trying to do is get it up to a level and then move it up to where it actually is an affordable wage. But there is going to be some fallout, perhaps. But overseas, the fallout was minimal, and the industry has recovered. If actually found that was actually better, because that money, for those who are earning that amount of money, most of that money is going back into the economy, it's circulating again, and so actually there was an uptick in the economy.
So the cost potentially that could be there for hotel owners if they have to increase, does that get passed along to the consumer and then potentially dissuade people who already think that Bermuda is perhaps on an already expensive destination to go on holiday? Does it push them to other islands?
Yeah, it could do that, Toni. And the concern we've got is that we're competing globally. There's no longer a regional market or regional competition that Bermuda has to be wary of. It's a global competitor out there that's really forcing us to really look very hard and very fast at how we conduct ourselves, how we price ourselves, and ensuring that we give quality service at the best possible professional level, but most importantly that we don't price ourselves out of the market. And so that's very important, and we're very hesitant as an industry of simply just passing on cost to our consumer, in this case our visitor. Air arrivals are extremely important to Bermuda, and it's the basis of our GDP and growth of that going
Besides
forward.
the competition between other locations and other hotels, there's obviously been such a big uptick when it comes to Airbnb and the equivalents to Airbnb. Another thing in the throne speech was this invitation to consider an amendment to the Tourism Investment Act, basically to give vacation rental properties the same type of goodies that the hotel industry has under this act, which are actually really good goodies in this act. So let me just name a few here. Full relief from customs duty in respect to any building materials, furnishing fixtures, full exemption from hotel occupancy tax for a period, full exemption for an employer's share of payroll tax, full exemption of a new hotel from land taxes commencing. I mean, there's guidelines around these things, but overall really good things. And what this basically will do is perhaps incentivize Mr. and Mrs. Bermuda to put on that addition or to renovate their home so that they can become a hotel operator in a sense and put more rooms on the market. Does that worry you?
No, we respect the fact that the visitor has a choice. And globally, you've seen a demand going in that direction to where they want options other than just the traditional hotel stay. And we're also cognizant of the fact that we've always had some form of a vacation rental property experience in Bermuda. You go back several generations, you'll see that it started in 1 or 2 rooms in a house to where you may have been in a family home to where they were simply accommodating visiting relatives, and then that grew to where you eventually had some of these very small guest houses and guest properties that came online. So this is really a resurgence of what we've always had, and we respect the competition, but we also recognize that there needs to be a level playing field in terms of what concessions are made and what is, as an example, the traditional hotel operator has to pay by way of taxes and other fees versus what is currently the landscape for a vacation rental property.
I mean, Cordell, do you share that opinion? Because we see what hotel occupancy rates look like when you average it out between the on-season and the off-season. It's not, it's not 90%, 80%. It's 60%, right? 60?
Yes, around about 60%. I think the concern there, and I haven't seen the act, so there may be some guidelines surrounding how it's implemented because, what's to stop someone, adding on a room, renting it out for 2 or 3 months and then deciding I'm taking it out of stock. I've gotten the duty relief, I've gotten the new television in there, and I've gotten all these things, but now I'm going to switch to another use. So I think how it's policed is going to be very interesting. But I think, to get more beds on, because we're really down in terms of number of beds. We've got some beds coming on later on next year.
Right.
But until that happens, and the uptake in tourism, it's slow and steady, and so there's going to be a need for beds. But what the Airbnb is doing is allowing for people who may not normally have come to Bermuda, or those who came before, to spend more money in the economy by staying at cheaper accommodations. So I think that's where the benefit of it is, but I think my concern would be how is it going to be policed.
Okay, and to be fair, there was a very, very small paragraph on that in the throne speech. Just one other thing, really quickly. There was an example in the throne speech from the Pitt Commission of a laborer who had made more money than a hotel manager. This was years ago. So is this still the case now that people that are in management positions in the hotel industry are making less than a day laborer?
No, I don't think that is something that would be reflective of where we are today in today's economy. But it does go back to your original question, Toni, of when you implement a living wage, and if you were to simply move the needle to where you're increasing the hourly rate from that benchmark of $6 to 18 or 20 in the next couple of years, where does that put the gratuity-based employee versus those that may be on a fixed weekly or hourly or monthly income? you could actually skew the goalpost, and you would create a new imbalance and a new indifference in specifically our industry.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Thank you both very much for joining me, Stephen Todd and Cordell O'Reilly. All right, we're going to head off for a quick break, but when we get back, a look at some of the hottest trends in the hotel industry. I sit down with a leading hospitality consultant who says luxury all-inclusives is where it's at, but Bermuda can't compete. We'll explain next.
New Toyota Rush, Bermuda's biggest SUV with 7 seats. There's always plenty of room. Available at Bermuda Motors.
From happy beginnings and life choices that we make along the way,
Colonial protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
Family protection and long-term financial plans.
Business insurance and generous employee benefits.
For happy beginnings to happy ever after, visit CGIGroup.com.
Colonial, where people come first.
Welcome back to the program. Tonight, we are throwing the spotlight on the hospitality industry, one of Bermuda's main economic pillars. We've just heard how initiatives from Friday's throne speech could impact the industry, but from the industry insiders, the experts, what about you? Do Bermudians still think that the industry is a viable career choice? Gary Foster Skelton took to the streets of Hamilton to find out in this week's edition of Your Take.
Do you or have you ever worked in hospitality?
I have briefly. I have 2 daughters that work in hospitality now.
I was at concierge.
Yeah, I was a bellman for about 4 summers.
Way back in the 60s and 70s.
As a young man, I worked as a waiter.
I've worked at the Castle Harbor Marriott until it closed down, and I've worked at Hamilton Princess.
Do you think hospitality is a viable career in Bermuda?
Is becoming one if you continue the investment.
The amount of money that flows through Bermuda in regards to the hospitality, and being the fact we are a tourist destination, there's a need for it.
I think there should be a lot of training for young people who want to get into the hospitality industry. I'm not sure that support is there.
Everyone's pushing international business, insurance, even medical careers and things of that nature. Hospitality is just not seen as a viable option. I'm not sure why.
Tourists, when they come here, they want to see Bermuda. Most of the time, that's what will make it work for the hotels and different places. If there were Bermudians employed in the hospitality.
I think it's definitely a viable career. It's just a matter of economics.
When it's summertime, yes, but when it's wintertime, no.
You got a slow season, and it's difficult for you to be managing rent, home life.
I think maybe the salary is too low.
Because costs continuously go up, the wages never follow as close.
Gratuities mainly make up your salary. At the time, the gratuity was only 15%. But for me, I did well because I work hard.
Well, tourism is certainly an important part of Bermuda's economy, but the same goes globally. Travel and tourism is one of the world's largest industries, injecting more than $7.6 trillion into the global economy back in 2016. International tourism arrivals, more than $1.3 trillion. With that many people from so many different corners of the world, you can imagine how difficult it is to stay on top of trends. Andrew Cohen, managing director for Horwath HTL, that's a big hotel tourism and leisure consulting firm in the United States, gave us his take on what's hot in the industry right now.
One of the biggest trends in the luxury tier is a smaller hotel with branded residences around it. And you've seen several of those coming or have been announced or under construction now here in Bermuda. It's also a trend that's been quite successful in Miami, in Grand Cayman, in other well-heeled Caribbean and tropical locations. I think it's really a difficult model for here in Bermuda. Number one, because there aren't that many places where we can put 800 rooms of new all-inclusive resort. And the other thing is they seem to have gotten their start, at least, in places that have low labor costs. So you saw them in Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and in Mexico. People don't just want a building that's beautiful and has lots of marble in it. They want experiences that other people have trouble getting. They want to be able to put the photo on Instagram that says, I got to do this, hang gliding off of some cliff to a yoga class. That would certainly be one of the trends. The other is infusing wellness the same way it's infused in our lives in the city. Vegan fast food in New York or Boston, replacing the traditional burger and fried chicken. The same thing is happening with menus and nutrition at resort and vacation destinations. In the past it was, and it's still very important, where the airlift is, right? So if you're looking at the Caribbean as a whole, you're looking at Cancun, Punta Cana, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Havana, Cuba, those being the biggest airports. So those were traditionally the sort of no-brainer spots to invest. But now you're seeing St. Lucia getting quite a bit of investment, Antigua, Grenada. So you're seeing a proliferation and a search for new destinations. You're also seeing in the very southern Caribbean, like Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, they're a bit outside of the hurricane zone, and after our last couple of years, that's become more and more important.
Well, some very interesting thoughts there on the future of the tourism industry. But let's switch gears now and take a look at some other stories making headlines tonight.
Insurers are raising red flags over a draft Brexit deal, saying it could limit their access to the EU financial markets. That's because the section of the deal dedicated to financial services is built around the concept of equivalence. And equivalence under Solvency II does not grant market access for insurance business. The CEO of the London and International Insurance Brokers Association, hoping the term was used for the sake of brevity and simplicity. Otherwise, he says it raises serious concerns for firms and their clients. As the campfire rages on in California, insured wildfire losses in the state are nearing record levels. AM Best says it's too early to tally the losses, but warned they could be historic. The Carr fire alone could see losses of $2 billion, while the Woolsey fire ripped through Malibu, which has an average home value of nearly $3 million. Farmers Insurance Group, Travelers, and Liberty Mutual Insurance are all exposed. A victory for 9 of the world's biggest insurers, the likes of AIG, Allianz, and AXA, could soon be off a too-big-to-fail list, which requires them to hold extra capital to cover potential losses. Global regulators say they want to scrap the list and replace it with a broader framework. The list was formed in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. Critics say the insurance industry didn't cause the meltdown, and the capital requirement increases costs and can reduce shareholder returns.
Time now for a quick break, but when we get back, it's no longer an expat sport. Rugby has become truly Bermudian. We're going to take a look at a local tournament attracting not just spectators, but college recruiters. Stay with us.
Win a trip or two to the 2019 Trinidad Carnival. When you purchase a car from Bermuda Motors, your name will be entered into a draw for a chance to win an all-expenses-paid trip for two, including flights, accommodation, and tickets to the Trinidad Carnival. Visit Bermuda Motors on Church Street or bermudamotors.bm.
Out here, if you're unsure where the trail leads, you're on the right path. Go to Bermuda.com.
Ever wondered what smart health insurance feels like?
Colonial's 24/7 worldwide health insurance does most of the thinking for you.
1,500 CGI health claims are settled daily.
60% of claims settled automatically.
You can access your health plan almost anywhere, anytime.
And have smart wellness with online data tracking.
And more provider choices for you and the people who matter most.
Premier Health is smart health insurance, and it feels good.
Colonial, where people come first.
Welcome back to The Breakdown. Well, we are fresh off another successful rugby event, the World Rugby Classic. The game was once dominated by expats, but it's truly become a local sport. In tonight's Bright Ideas segment, we tackle another rugby tournament that's not just attracting hundreds to the island, but sending a few overseas in the form of scholarships.
If you believe the stories, rugby was born out of a fine disregard for the rules of football. A young William Webb Ellis, a pupil at rugby school in England, took the ball in his arms and ran. That was 1823. Nearly 200 years later, and rugby is part of Bermuda's sporting culture and provides a revenue stream for the tourism industry.
The rugby community was originally very much an expatriate community. That's going back, 15, 20 years. But the biggest transition has been over the past 10 years, where more and more Bermudians are now involved in the teams.
Tom Healy is a veteran scrum half for the senior national sevens team. He says at a recent tournament, Bermudians outnumbered expats 4-1. But the team faces a challenge when it comes to recruitment, funding.
We recognized pretty early that these younger cohort were being left out of the team as there was just no funding for them.
Because they couldn't pay their own way.
And rugby is very much self-funded.
How much money are we talking about to go away for a rugby tournament?
All in, it's knocking on the door of $1,000 per tournament, which is just completely outside the range of some guys who are just not working yet, especially the younger school-going kids.
So the game was brought to them. The Ariel Ree Bermuda International Sevens Tournament kicked off in 2016, attracting the very best in boys' high school and college men and women's rugby. Kutztown University, Dartmouth, and Notre Dame are just some of the attendees.
Naturally, Bermuda is very expensive, so the sponsorship goes in to subsidizing travel, transportation. And like I said, when a school is indifferent in financial terms, whether to go to the southern US or to come to Bermuda, then it's an easy win.
Between players, coaches, and spectators, the tournament drew some 400 people last year. Among them, collegiate coaches looking to beef up their teams in the coming years.
Our latest successes with Alex Doyling, who's been selected by Kutztown University. So he's on a rugby scholarship there directly from the tournament and the opportunity he had last March.
But last year's tournament also brought tragedy. The death of 19-year-old Mark Dombrowski, a freshman at St. Joseph's University who accidentally fell into a dry moat.
Are you guys going to do something this year in remembrance of him?
Yes, we are going to do something. What that is, we haven't settled on yet. Mark's spirit will live on through the tournament for however long we can keep this going, and it'll always be a part of the story.
A story that started nearly 2 centuries ago when a young man decided to break the rules and wound up creating a whole new game. And for Bermuda, a whole new group of visitors to the island. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of The Breakdown. Thank you very much for joining me. If you missed part of the show or just want to tell your friends to watch, The Breakdown rebroadcasts on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. You can also catch it on the Bermuda Broadcasting YouTube page. Coming up on next week's show, insurance-linked securities. It's far more interesting than the name suggests. I'll explain what it is and whether Bermuda can maintain its ILS dominance. I hope you'll join me for that show. Until then, take care.